The mind is the most powerful instrument you possess, yet it often becomes the most cluttered. Every day it is flooded with worries, opinions, doubts, and fears that slowly suffocate its potential. People underestimate how much mental noise they carry. Endless thoughts looping in circles, unfinished ideas, emotional residue from the past, and expectations imposed by others. All this creates chaos within, and in that chaos, clarity cannot survive. When the mind is heavy with confusion, it cannot see opportunities even when they are right in front of it. True transformation begins the moment you decide to empty your mind, not by running away from thoughts, but by releasing the unnecessary and creating space for what truly matters. Emptying your mind is not about making it blank or lifeless. It is about allowing silence to take the place of noise. Imagine a room filled with clutter. There's no room to move, no space to breathe, no freedom to create. The mind works the same way. When you remove the clutter of doubt and fear, suddenly there is space for inspiration, creativity, and purpose to enter. You begin to think more clearly, see more deeply, and act with precision. The world doesn't change when you empty your mind. Your perception of it does. You start seeing patterns, connections, and possibilities that were always there but hidden beneath layers of mental noise. A cluttered mind is a distracted mind. It keeps you busy but not productive, active but not effective. You may spend hours thinking but achieve nothing because the energy of thought is scattered in too many directions. When the mind is emptied, its energy becomes focused and powerful. One clear thought has more force than 1,000 scattered ones. Every great achievement, every breakthrough idea begins from a place of mental stillness, a mind emptied of resistance and filled with intention. This is why some people accomplish more with less effort. They are not lucky, they are clear. Their minds AR. Not overloaded with fear or hesitation. They act from a space of certainty that only comes from clarity. Most people fear emptiness because they equate it with loss or nothingness. But in truth, emptiness is potential in its purest form. It is the fertile soil where new ideas can grow. When the mind is too full, it resists learning and renewal. But an empty mind remains open, ready to absorb wisdom, adapt to change, and welcome opportunity. Think of it as resetting the internal system. Just as a computer must clear memory to run efficiently, the mind must clear its emotional and mental cache to function at its highest capacity. You cannot download new programs when the old ones are still running in the background. In the same way, you cannot build new success while carrying the debris of old failures. Emptying your mind also means detaching from the need to control every outcome. When you stop forcing solutions and instead create mental space, answers often arise naturally. The best decisions don't come from panic, they come from peace. When the mind is calm and uncluttered, intuition becomes sharper. You start trusting your instincts more, and those instincts guide you toward the right direction with surprising accuracy. This is the silent power of an emptied mind. It doesn't fight the world, it flows with it. Ultimately, an empty mind is not weak. It is the foundation of true strength. It allows you to think independently, to create freely, and to live without the weight of unnecessary thoughts. It gives you mental freedom, the freedom to focus, to feel deeply, and to act decisively. The person who learns to empty their mind is no longer controlled by the chaos around them. They operate from a higher level of awareness where clarity replaces confusion, purpose replaces hesitation, and peace replaces anxiety. When your mind is empty, you do not lose anything. You gain. Overthinking is the silent destroyer of dreams. It disguises itself as preparation. But in Ruth, it is hesitation in disguise. The mind begins with one simple doubt, and before long it spirals into 1,000 questions, each one more paralyzing than the last. Overthinking builds invisible walls between intention and action. It convinces you that by analyzing every outcome, you're staying safe, but in reality, you're standing still. The person who constantly lives in the world of what if never takes the first step toward what could be. Overthinking doesn't protect you from failure. It guarantees it by keeping you trapped in thought. It is the mental equivalent of running on a treadmill. You expend enormous energy, but remain in the same place. The real danger of overthinking lies in its ability to distort reality. The more you think about something, the more you create exaggerated fears and imaginary problems. The mind begins to project its own insecurities onto the future, turning possibilities into threats. You start believing that every decision must be perfect, every outcome certain, every risk controlled. But perfection is an illusion, and control is temporary. The person who waits until every detail is clear never begins anything great. Progress belongs to those who act despite uncertainty, who understand that clarity is not the starting point. It is the reward that comes after movement. A clear mind is not one that knows everything, but one that has the courage to begin even when it doesn't. Overthinking also kills creativity. When the mind is tangled in excessive analysis, there is no space for new ideas to emerge. Inspiration needs freedom, not pressure. The greatest insights often come in moments of surrender, when the mind stops trying to force solutions and allows intuition to take over. But the overthinker never reaches that point because they are constantly battling their own thoughts. They analyze instead of imagine. They predict instead of create. And in doing so, they rob themselves of the natural flow of intelligence that comes FRT. A relaxed, empty mind. The creative mind is like a river. It moves freely and adapts to every curve of the every time you overthink, you send a message to your subconscious that you do not trust yourself. You tell your mind that it must check, doubt, and question everything before acting. This constant mental friction weakens confidence. Self-doubt becomes a habit, and hesitation becomes your natural state. Soon, even the simplest decisions feel overwhelming. You start to fear failure more than you desire success. But the truth is, no amount of thinking can remove all risk. Every great achievement in history was born in uncertainty. The difference between those who succeed and those who stay stuck is not intelligence. It is the willingness to act without complete assurance. Action breeds clarity. Hesitation breeds confusion. To break free from overthinking, you must learn the art of trust. Trust in your preparation, your instincts, and your ability to adapt. Once you make a decision, release it. Let it breathe. The mind will always want to revisit and analyze, but discipline means refusing to reopen doors that have already been closed. The moment you stop overthinking, you reclaim your power. You begin to realize that progress is not made by perfect plans, but by consistent movement. Every step forward, no matter how small, builds momentum. The mind that acts learns, the mind that only thinks forgets. Life rewards clarity, but clarity comes only after the courage to begin. Overthinking is a prison of the mind, and the key to escape lies in faith. Faith in yourself, faith in your path, and faith that even if you stumble, you will rise wiser and stronger than before. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of power. In a world that glorifies noise, silence becomes a rare luxury and a hidden strength. Every day, the mind is bombarded with constant chatter, notifications, conversations, distractions, and worries. This relentless stream of noise, PR, prevents it from truly hearing itself. The mind, when overwhelmed by sound and stimulation, loses connection with its inner intelligence. Yet, when silence enters, something remarkable happens. Thoughts settle, emotions calm, and clarity begins to rise like the sun after a storm. Silence is not emptiness, it is space. And within that space, ideas mature, visions sharpen, and the voice of intuition becomes audible. The still mind becomes a vessel of creation, not chaos. It begins to operate from awareness rather than reaction. When you embrace silence, you gain access to a different dimension of strength, a calm, centered energy that is not shaken by external circumstances. People often mistake silence for weakness, thinking that only loud voices command attention. But true power does not need to shout, it radiates quietly. In silence, you begin to see the difference between what is urgent and what is important. The noise of life makes you chase everything that sparkles, while silence teaches you to pursue only what truly matters. It reconnects you to your values, your vision, and your purpose. The calm mind becomes unshakable because its strength comes not from external validation, but from internal certainty. Silence is the soil in which self-mastery grows. Silence also sharpens perception. When the noise fades, you start to notice things you once ignored. Patterns, emotions, ideas, and details that were hidden behind distraction. This heightened awareness allows you to make better decisions, respond instead of react, and move with intention rather than impulse. The mind in silence becomes a mirror reflecting truth without distortion. It stops judging and starts observing. This clarity is what separates the average from the exceptional. Those who know how to sit in silence can read life more deeply. They are not pulled by the tides of chaos because they have found stillness within themselves. Silence gives them an advantage in every area of life: business, ion ships, creativity, and growth, because their decisions come from clarity, not confusion. Yet silence is uncomfortable for many. The moment external noise disappears, internal noise takes over. Thoughts begin to rush in. Memories resurface. Fears grow louder. This is why many avoid silence. It forces them to face what they've been running from. But those who are brave enough to sit with that discomfort eventually find peace on the other side. As the layers of mental noise fade, what remains is truth, the quiet certainty of who you are and what you are meant to do. That is the gift of silence. It strips away illusions and connects you to your core. The mind, when cleansed by silence, becomes like still water, calm, deep, and capable of reflecting light clearly. When you learn to value silence, you stop wasting energy on meaningless noise. You no longer need to argue to prove a point, nor react to every disturbance around you. You conserve your mental strength for what truly matters. In silence, you recharge your spirit, strengthen your focus, and prepare for purposeful action. Every great decision, every creative breakthrough, every moment of deep wisdom is born from a silent space within. The world may be loud, but your strength lies in your ability to stay still amidst the noise. When you master silence, you no longer need to chase peace. You become peace. You no longer need to search for answers. You hear them within. Silence is not an escape from life. It is the foundation of a powerful one. Negativity is the poison that quietly eats away at the strength of the mind. It begins with a single thought, a small complaint, a little doubt, a trace of envy. And before you realize it, it spreads into every corner of your being. The danger of negativity is not just in what it does to your mood. It's in how it reshapes your perception of reality. When your mind is filled with negative thoughts, everything you see becomes tinted with darkness. Opportunities look like traps, challenges feel like punishments, and life itself starts to appear unfair. A negative mind cannot create positive outcomes. It builds barriers where none exist and blinds you to the possibilities standing right in front of you. To empty your mind of negativity is to reclaim control over how you experience the world. It is the decision to no longer let fear and resentment dictate your direction. Negativity thrives where gratitude is absent. The moment you stop appreciating what you have, your mind begins to search for what's missing. It compares, it complains, and it condemns. The more you indulge in these thoughts, the more they multiply until your energy is consumed by dissatisfaction. Gratitude is the antidote. When you focus on what is good, your perception shifts. You begin to see abundance instead of lack, lessons instead of losses, and strength instead of struggle. Gratitude empties the mind of bitterness and replaces it with balance. It reminds you that no matter how imperfect life may seem, there is always something to be thankful for: breath, growth, experience, and opportunity. When gratitude becomes a daily practice, negativity has no room to live. Another source of negativity is the company you keep. Thoughts are contagious, emotions are transferable. When you surround yourself with people who constantly complain, criticize, or doubt, their energy seeps into you even when you try to resist it. Protecting your mind means protecting your environment. You cannot expect peace if you constantly breathe in chaos. The mind is like a sponge. It absorbs whatever it's exposed to most. This is why it's essential to choose your influences wisely. Fill your surroundings with voices that uplift you, challenge you, and remind you of your potential. A single positive influence can rewire an entire mindset. A single negative one can destroy your confidence. Guard your mind as you would guard treasure, because it is the source of every decision and every DI. Direction in your life. Negativity also comes from holding on to pain. Anger, guilt, and resentment become heavy burdens that occupy mental space meant for growth. You may think holding on gives you power or justice, but in truth, it gives you chains. Every time you replay a painful memory, you strengthen its hold on your present. The only way to free yourself is to forgive, not because others deserve it, but because you do. Forgiveness empties the heart of poison and returns peace to the mind. It does not mean forgetting the lesson, it means releasing the weight. You cannot rise while carrying the baggage of bitterness. The higher you wish to climb, the lighter you must become. To remove negativity completely, you must replace it with purpose. A mind that is empty of negativity but lacks vision will soon fill itself with it again. Purpose gives direction to your energy. It turns pain into progress and mistakes into wisdom. When your focus is on growth, there is no space left for doubt. You stop reacting to small problems because your attention is fixed on a greater mission. That is the final transformation. The moment when you no longer need to fight negativity because your mind operates at a higher vibration. You become too focused to be distracted, too grateful to complain, and too purposeful to fear. The poison fades not because you resisted it, but because you outgrew it. When the mind is emptied of negativity, it becomes a channel of power, peace, and pure potential. The past is a powerful teacher, but a cruel master if you never learn to let it go. Many people live their entire lives imprisoned by what once happened. Mistakes they made, chances they missed, words they regret, and pain they could not avoid. These memories replay like a loop in the mind, keeping them tied to moments that no longer exist. The tragedy of holding on to the past is that it prevents you from fully living in the present. You cannot see the opportunities in front of you when your eye are fixed on what's behind. The past is meant to shape you, not define you. When you hold on too tightly, you give it control over your emotions, your actions, and your future. The moment you choose to release it, you begin to reclaim your power. Letting go is not a sign of weakness. It is a declaration of freedom, the decision to no longer carry yesterday's burdens into tomorrow's journey. Clinging to the past often comes from fear. The fear of change, the fear of loss, the fear that life will never feel the same again. Pain becomes familiar, and familiarity becomes comfort, even when it hurts. That is why so many people stay stuck in cycles of regret and resentment. They have mistaken familiarity for safety, but growth never happens in comfort. When you hold on to the past, you shut yourself off from the flow of life. You keep trying to recreate what is gone instead of embracing what could be. The truth is, nothing in life is meant to stay still. People change, seasons end, and circumstances evolve. The only way to truly move forward is to accept that change is not the enemy. It is the engine of transformation. The past will keep calling, but peace begins when you stop answering. To let go of the past, you must first make peace with it. Acceptance is the first step toward liberation. You cannot erase what happened, but you can change how you relate to it. Every painful experience carries a lesson, and every loss leaves behind wisdom. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" That question shifts you from victimhood to empowerment. It allows you to see pain not as punishment, but as preparation. The greatest growth often comes through struggle. The experiences that broke you were also shaping you into someone stronger, wiser, and more resilient. When you begin to view your past through the lens of learning, the pain begins to lose its power over you. Forgiveness is another essential part of releasing the past. As long as you hold resentment toward others or guilt toward yourself, your energy remains trapped in old wounds. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting or excusing what happened. It means choosing peace over poison. It means saying, "I refuse to let this memory control me any longer." The act of forgiving frees not only those you once blamed, but also yourself. It allows your mind to breathe again. Every moment you spend resenting someone is a moment you lose from your own happiness. Forgiveness empties the heart of heaviness and creates room for new beginnings. When you finally let go of the past, you begin to live in a state of lightness. The mind becomes clear, focused, and open to the present moment. You no longer react from old wounds, you respond from new wisdom. You start to see that life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. Each chapter, no matter how painful, played a part in shaping your story. The past is not meant to be erased, but integrated. Learn from it, grow from it, and then release it. Carry only the wisdom forward, not the weight, because every day you wake up is a new page waiting to be written, and you cannot write a new chapter if your hands are still holding on to the last one. Freedom, peace, and purpose begin the moment you decide to let go. The modern world is built on noise. constant chatter, opinions, trends, and distractions that pull your mind in every direction. Every notification, every comparison, every external expectation becomes a small chain that ties you to the world's chaos. Slowly, without realizing it, your thoughts stop belonging to you. You start thinking what others think, wanting what others want, and fearing what others fear. The mind becomes like a crowded marketplace where everyone's voice is louder than your own. Detachment from external noise is not isolation, it is liberation. It means reclaiming ownership of your attention, your thoughts, and your energy. It is the art of stepping back from the noise long, enough to hear the quiet truth within you. Only when you distance yourself from the outside world's constant demands do you begin to understand who you really are beneath the noise. The danger of external noise is that it keeps you reactive instead of intentional. You scroll through endless opinions, absorb countless ideas, and before long you start to measure yourself against people you've never met. The result is confusion and exhaustion. A feeling of never being enough because you're chasing standards that were never yours to begin with. Detachment allows you to silence that inner chaos. It helps you stop seeking validation from others and start trusting your inner compass. When you detach, you begin to recognize the difference between noise and guidance, between distraction and direction. You realize that not every voice deserves your attention, and not every opinion deserves a response. The mind regains clarity when it stops being a reflection of everyone else's thoughts. Detachment also strengthens emotional control. When you're overly influenced by the noise around you, your emotions swing like a pendulum, one moment lifted by praise, the next shattered by criticism. You become a puppet pulled by invisible strings. But when you detach, you stop giving others that power. You begin to understand that peace is not found in silence from the world, but in silence within yourself. You can be surrounded by chaos, yet remain centered because your focus is inward, not outward. The world's noise loses its grip when you stop identifying with it. You no longer need to prove anything, defend anything, or chase anything. You simply observe, understand, and move with calm purpose. That calm is not apathy, it is mastery. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring about people or the world. It means you care without losing yourself in the process. You engage without absorbing negativity. You listen without adopting others' fears, and you participate without becoming dependent on approval. This kind of detachment creates balance, the ability to act from wisdom instead of reaction. You stop being manipulated by trends, opinions, and fleeting emotions. You make choices rooted in clarity rather than confusion. The more you detach, the more freedom you gain. And with freedom comes authenticity, the courage to live by your truth, not society's expectations. To master detachment, you must learn the discipline of stillness. Take time each day to step away from the noise. Turn off the devices, close the conversations, and sit in silence. At first, it may feel uncomfortable because the mind is addicted to stimulation. But as you stay with the silence, you begin to feel something deeper than distraction, peace. You start to remember that your worth was never tied to noise, and your direction never depended on the crowd. Detachment reconnects you to your inner power, a state where your thoughts, emotions, and choices align. When you detach from the external, you attach to the eternal, the quiet intelligence within you that knows where you're meant to go. In a world drowning in noise, the one who masters detachment becomes unshakable. Nature operates through a powerful law, the vacuum principle. Whenever you clear out what no longer serves you, something new rushes in to take its place. The same is true for the mind. When it is filled with clutter, doubts, fears, worries, and regrets, there is no room for creativity or new possibilities to enter. But the moment you empty it, a natural process begins. Ideas, inspiration, and intuition flow in effortlessly, as if the universe was just waiting for you to make space. This is the creative vacuum, the mysterious but undeniable truth that letting go of the old invites the birth of the new. It's not about forcing success or chasing inspiration, it's about creating room for them to exist. The more you release mental chaos, the more you attract order, clarity, and power. Most people misunderstand creatio. They think it happens by adding more effort, more thought, more information. But real creation begins with subtraction. Just as a sculptor doesn't add clay to reveal beauty, but removes what hides it, You too must remove everything that clouds your inner brilliance. A cluttered mind cannot innovate because it is busy holding on to what was. The creative vacuum allows you to see beyond the limits of old beliefs. When you stop overfilling your mental space, the imagination wakes up. You begin to think freely, see connections you never noticed before, and generate ideas that once felt unreachable. Great breakthroughs don't come from thinking harder, they come from thinking clearer. Clarity requires emptiness, and emptiness opens the door to creation. The creative vacuum also demands trust. Trust in the unseen process of renewal. When you release something, an idea, a goal, a relationship, or even a fear, there is always a moment of uncertainty. The mind resists emptiness because it fears loss. But that emptiness is not loss, it's preparation. Just like a field must be cleared before it can be planted again, your mind must experience stillness before it can receive new inspiration. The vacuum feels uncomfortable at first because it is the space between what was and what will be. Yet, if you hold faith during that gap, what comes next is always greater. Life cannot fill your hands if they are still clinging to what's already gone. The same applies to thought. Your mind cannot receive brilliance while it is still occupied with fear. This principle can be seen everywhere in nature. When the tree sheds its leaves, it creates space for new growth. When the night falls, it makes way for dawn. The universe itself works through balance, release and renewal, emptiness and creation. Your mind, being a part of this natural rhythm, follows the same rule. The more you try to fill every moment with noise and distraction, the less you allow inspiration to breathe. Creati thrives in silence, in stillness, in surrender. That is the space where intuition whispers and clarity forms. The creative vacuum is not about doing more, it is about being open to receive. When you learn to trust that what leaves your life is clearing the path for something better, you begin to live from abundance, not scarcity. Embracing the creative vacuum is an act of courage. It means you are willing to let go of control and allow life to rearrange itself in your favor. You stop resisting change and start welcoming it. You stop fearing endings and start celebrating beginnings. The empty mind becomes like fertile soil, waiting, ready, and full of potential. Every new idea, every transformation, every moment of genius arises from that emptiness. The creative vacuum is the birthplace of innovation, wisdom, and power. When you learn to honor it, you stop chasing inspiration and begin attracting it effortlessly. Emptiness, then, is not a void. It is the sacred space where everything new begins to grow. The mind functions like a mirror. It reflects whatever you place before it. When it is clear and still, it shows reality as it truly is. But when it is covered with the dust of worry, fear, and negativity, everything becomes distorted. You begin to mistake illusions for truth and obstacles for impossibilities. Just as a dirty mirror cannot reflect your face clearly, a cluttered mind cannot perceive life accurately. The thoughts you hold shape the world you see. If you constantly feed your mind with doubt, you will find reasons to doubt everything. If you fill it with gratitude and faith, you will begin to notice opportunities and blessings everywhere. The world outside you is simply a reflection of the world within you. The state of your mind determines the quality of your life. To change your experience, you must first polish the mirror. Clarity of mind begins with awareness. You cannot clean a mirror if you do not see the dust on it. In the same way, you cannot change your thoughts until you become aware of them. Most people live on autopilot, reacting to life rather than consciously responding to it. They let old beliefs, past experiences, and external influences shape their thinking without realizing it. But awareness breaks that cycle. When you pause and observe your thoughts without judgment, you begin to recognize which ones uplift you and which ones limit you. Awareness gives you the power to choose what to keep and what to release. Each time you replace a negative pattern with a constructive one, the mirror of your mind becomes clearer. Over time, this clarity transforms not just how you think, but how you live. The mind as a mirror also teaches responsibility. You cannot blame the reflection for what it shows you. If you don't like what you see, it is not the mirror's fault. It is a signal that something within you needs attention. The same principle applies to life. When you encounter repeated problems, frustrations, or patterns, it is often your inner world being mirrored back to you. Instead of reacting with blame, ask yourself what this reflection is trying to reveal. Perhaps it's showing you a fear that needs healing, a belief that needs changing, or a strength you've forgotten. The outer world responds to your inner vibration. When you shift your inner focus toward peace, purpose, and positivity, your external reality gradually aligns with that energy. Life is not happening against you, it is responding to you. Keeping the mirror of the mind clean requires discipline. Every day, dust will settle in the form of stress, negativity, and distraction. You cannot prevent this, but you can commit to clearing it regularly. Moments of stillness, gratitude, reflection, or meditation act like cloths that wipe away the dirt. They restore your inner clarity and keep your thoughts aligned with truth rather than fear. The more you practice mental cleanliness, the faster you recover from challenges, instead of being pulled in. Chaos, you return to calmness easily. A clear mind reflects reality as it is, not worse than it is, not better, but true. And from truth, wisdom is born. When your mind becomes a polished mirror, you begin to see life through the lens of understanding rather than reaction. You stop projecting your fears onto others and start perceiving the deeper meaning behind events. You understand that what you attract is a reflection of what you are. This awareness gives you immense power, the power to shape your reality through the quality of your thoughts. A mind filled with clarity sees opportunity in adversity, lessons in loss, and purpose in pain. The mirror does not create what it reflects, it only shows what already exists. When you master your inner reflection, you master your outer world. A pure mind radiates peace, and peace transforms everything it touches. Every thought you think is a command to your mind, a signal that shapes how you interpret the world around you. Over time, these repeated commands form patterns, habitual ways of thinking that determine how you feel, act, and respond. Most of these patterns were not consciously chosen. They were learned through experience, environment, and repetition. The mind, like fertile soil, doesn't question what you plant. It simply nourishes whatever seeds you drop into it. If you continually plant seeds of fear, doubt, and limitation, they grow into beliefs that restrict you. If you plant thoughts of strength, gratitude, and purpose, they become the foundation of success. Reprogramming thought patterns means reclaiming authority over your mental garden. It is the process of uprooting the weeds of negativity and intentionally sowing new seeds that align with who you want to become. The first step to reprogramming your thoughts is awareness. You cannot change what you don't notice. Most people live inside mental loops that have played for years. Beliefs like, I'm not good enough, I'll always struggle, or I don't deserve success. These thoughts run silently in the background, shaping behavior without conscious consent. To break free, you must observe your inner dialogue with honesty and compassion. Notice what thoughts arise when you face challenges, what stories your mind tells when you fail, and what assumptions you make when opportunities appear. Awareness exposes the hidden programs that dictate your actions. Once you see them, you gain the power to interrupt them. Awareness turns reaction into choice. After awareness comes replacement. It's not enough to remove negative thoughts. You must replace them with empowering ones. The mind does not like emptiness. It seeks direction. Each time an old thought arises, consciously introduce a new one in its place. When your mind says, I can't, respond with, I can learn. When it whispers, I'm not ready, remind yourself, I'm becoming ready. This deliberate substitution, repeated consistently, begins to rewrite the neural pathways in your brain. At first, it feels forced. The old patterns resist change because they've been reinforced for years. But with persistence, the new thoughts start to feel natural. The brain adapts to what it experiences most often. Repetition builds belief, and belief builds behavior. Visualization and affirmation amplify this process. When you imagine yourself succeeding, overcoming, or growing, your brain activates the same neural circuits as if you were actually experiencing those events. This mental rehearsal conditions your mind to expect success instead of failure. Affirmations, spoken with conviction and consistency, reinforce that new mental state. But they work only when supported by emotion and action. Saying I am confident means little if you act timidly. But when you embody confidence through posture, tone, and decision, the mind adjusts to match the new reality. You are not tricking your brain. You are training it. The more aligned your thoughts, emotions, and actions become, the stronger the new programming gets. Reprogramming also requires patience and forgiveness. You will slip back into old patterns sometimes, and that's part of the process. The goal isn't perfection, but progress. Each time you recognize and correct a limiting thought, you weaken its influence. Every act of awareness is an act of growth. The mind learns through repetition, and transformation happens gradually, then suddenly. One day, you'll catch yourself responding calmly where you once panicked, believing in yourself where you once doubted, acting decisively where you once hesitated. That's when you'll know the new programming has taken root. Ultimately, reprogramming your thought patterns is the art of self-liberation. It is the conscious decision to no longer be ruled by old conditioning. You stop being the product of your past and start becoming the architect of your future. Every empowering thought you nurture expands your potential. Every moment of awareness strengthens your control, and every act of belief reshapes your destiny. Your mind becomes your ally, not your enemy. You begin to live with intention instead of reaction, creation instead of survival. When you master your thoughts, you master your life, because every action, every achievement, and every transformation begins first as a single reprogrammed thought. Simplicity is not the absence of thought. It is the mastery of it. A simple mind is not an empty one. It is a focused, uncluttered, and calm mind. The world often confuses complexity with intelligence, but true wisdom lies in clarity. When your mind is burdened with endless noise, opinions, and distractions, it loses its power to think deeply and act decisively. The freedom of mental simplicity comes from letting go of what does not serve your growth. It means releasing unnecessary worries, irrelevant comparisons, and meaningless mental chatter. Simplicity allows your thoughts to breathe, your emotions to settle, and your decisions to emerge from a place of inner peace. When your mind is quiet, you begin to see what truly matters, and that is where your strength begins to awaken. A complicated mind is constantly at war with itself. It jumps from one thought to another, overanalyzing every detail, trying to control every outcome, fearing every possibility. It creates stress where none exists and confusion where there should be clarity. This constant mental turbulence drains your energy, clouds your judgment, and distances you from your true self. Simplicity, on the other hand, restores harmony. It teaches you to focus only on what you can control and to release the rest. It helps you discern between what deserves your attention and what deserves your indifference. The fewer mental battles you fight, the more power you have to direct your energy toward meaningful creation. A simple mind is not dull, it is disciplined. It chooses where to shine its light. The practice of mental simplicity begins with awareness of mental clutter. Throughout the day, countless thoughts flood your mind, some useful, most unnecessary. They arise from past regrets, future fears, and external noise. Simplicity invites you to pause and ask, is this thought helping me or holding me back? Is it real or just a repetition of old fear? By questioning your thoughts, you strip away the layers of illusion that complicate your perception. You begin to realize that most of your worries never materialize, and most of your overthinking never changes the outcome. When you simplify your thinking, you return to the present moment, the only place where peace and power truly exist. The present moment is simple, but the mind often resists simplicity because it fears silence. Yet it is in silence that your true potential speaks. A simple mind does not mean a passive one. It means your thoughts are aligned with purpose, not scattered by distraction. It allows you to think clearly, make confident decisions, and act with conviction. When you simplify your inner world, your tier world begins to follow. You become less reactive to chaos because you no longer carry chaos within you. Simplicity gives birth to efficiency. You stop wasting energy on trivial things and channel it toward your goals. You stop chasing everything and start building something. The greatest innovators, leaders, and thinkers in history understood this truth. When you simplify your focus, you amplify your results. One clear thought is more powerful than 1,000 confused ones. Freedom comes when your mind no longer feels the need to hold everything. You let go of the weight of the unnecessary. the grudges, the comparisons, the mental arguments with people who aren't even present. You stop living inside loops of what-ifs and start living in the flow of what is. You begin to appreciate the quiet, not as emptiness, but as clarity. You realize that true intelligence isn't about having more thoughts. It's about having the right thoughts. Mental simplicity is the foundation of strength, peace, and creativity. It frees you from the illusion of control and reconnects you with the essence of life itself. When the mind becomes simple, the soul becomes strong. The path ahead becomes visible, and each step forward feels lighter, truer, and infinitely more powerful. Every limitation that exists in your life begins as a thought in your mind. Before any wall appears in reality, it is first built within your imagination. The mind can be your greatest prison or your greatest power, depending on how you use it. Mental limitations are not real barriers. They are illusions you have accepted as truth. They come from the stories you've told yourself, stories of inadequacy, fear, and failure. You convince yourself that you cannot, and that belief becomes your reality. To break these mental limitations, you must first recognize that they are self-created. No one can confine your potential unless you cooperate with that confinement. Freedom begins the moment you stop believing every limiting thought that crosses your mind. Most people live their lives inside invisible cages made of past experiences. A failure in childhood becomes a lifelong hesitation. A single rejection becomes a belief that they are unworthy. These mental boundaries shrink your world and steal your opportunities. But the truth is, every limitation you hold can be questioned, and once questioned, it begins to dissolve. Ask yourself, is this thought true, or is it just familiar? Familiarity often disguises itself as truth. Just because you have thought something for years does not mean it is real. When you start challenging your inner limitations, the walls begin to crack. The same energy that once sustained your fears becomes fuel for your transformation. You begin to see that the mind is not meant to be a cage. It is meant to be a canvas where you can paint the vision of your highest self. Breaking mental limitations requires courage, the courage to confront your own beliefs. It means standing face to face with the voice inside that says, I can't, and replying, watch me. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move through it. Each time you take a step beyond what you think you can do, your mind expands. You create new evidence of what is possible. The old limits lose their power because they can no longer define you. You begin to realize that growth happens only when you challenge your boundaries. Comfort creates stagnation, but challenge creates evolution. The discomfort you feel when you push beyond your limits is the sign of your mind stretching, adapting, and awakening to new strength. One powerful way to break mental barriers is through action. Overthinking strengthens limitation, while action destroys it. When you act despite doubt, you reprogram your subconscious mind to believe in your capability. Every small victory rewrites your internal story. You no longer rely on motivation, you rely on momentum. Action proves to your mind that you are stronger than your fear, wiser than your doubt, and greater than your hesitation. With every step forward, the limits that once seemed impossible begin to vanish. The path becomes clearer not because the obstacles disappear, but because your mind grows larger than them. You stop being controlled by your fears and start being guided by your vision. Freedom from mental limitation is not a one-time event. It is a lifelong practice. New levels of growth bring new challenges and with them, new doubts. But each time you break through one layer of limitation, you gain the confidence to face the next. You learn to see obstacles not as walls, but as invitations to expand. You stop asking, can I? And start asking, how can I? This shift transforms your entire mindset. The impossible becomes possible, not because the world changes, but because you do. You realize that there are no limits to what you can become, only limits to what you believe you can be. And when belief expands, everything expands. You become the architect of your own destiny, no longer confined by the boundaries of the past, but guided by the infinite potential of the mind that you have finally freed. Detachment is not indifference, it is inner freedom. It is the art of caring deeply without being controlled by the outcome. Most people mistake attachment for love, commitment, or ambition. But attachment is rooted in fear, the fear of loss, failure, or uncertainty. When you are attached to something, you cling to it with desperation, believing your peace depends on it. You become trapped by the very thing you desire. Detachment, on the other hand, allows you to engage fully in life without being enslaved by it. It means giving your best effort, holding the vision of what you want, but releasing the need to control how or when it happens. It is the balance between passion and surrender. When you learn to detach, your mind becomes calm, your focus becomes sharper, and your results often become even greater because your energy is no longer clouded by anxiety or obsession. The power of detachment lies in clarity. When you are overly attached, your perception becomes distorted. You see what you fear instead of what is real. You interpret every delay as failure, every rejection as a sign to give up. Your mind becomes consumed with what could go wrong instead of what you can do right. Detachment clears this fog. It allows you to see things as they are, not through the lens of desire or fear, but through the lens of truth. When your emotions no longer dictate your vision, your decisions become wiser. You stop reacting impulsively and start responding intelligently. You realize that forcing an outcome often pushes it further away, while trusting the process draws it closer. Detachment is not about doing less, it's about doing with peace instead of panic. The essence of detachment is trust. Trust in yourself, trust in your effort, and trust in the natural rhythm of life. Everything has its timing, and when you detach, you stop trying to rush the universe. You begin to understand that what is meant for you will not require you to chase it endlessly. It will meet you when you are ready. Detachment doesn't weaken desire, it purifies it. It removes the neediness that repels success and replaces it with quiet confidence. You learn to enjoy the journey without obsessing over the destination. This mindset brings a sense of calm strength. You move through challenges without losing your balance, and even when things don't go as planned, you don't crumble, you adjust. You begin to see that life flows more easily when you stop trying to control every wave. Practicing detachment doesn't mean you stop caring about outcomes. It means you stop suffering for them. You can still work passionately, dream boldly, and strive relentlessly. The difference is that your happiness no longer depends on whether things go exactly as you imagined. You are free to adapt, to pivot, to learn. You become more resilient because your sense of worth is not tied to external results. Failure no longer destroys you, it teaches you. Success no longer intoxicates you, it humbles you. Detachment brings emotional balance, allowing you to experience both gain and loss with grace. It is a state of strength, not weakness, a quiet assurance that no matter what happens, you remain whole. When you master detachment, you discover a new kind of power, the power to stay centered in chaos, to act with purpose without losing peace. You stop reacting to life and start co-creating with it. Your mind becomes light, unburdened by expectation, and this lightness makes you unstoppable. Detachment turns anxiety into awareness, obsession into focus, and control into flow. You realize that life is not something to be gripped tightly, but something to be experienced fully. When you no longer cling to every outcome, you open yourself to infinite possibilities. You find joy not just in achievement, but in the mere act of being alive, creating, and evolving. That is the true power of detachment. A mind that is free, calm, and unshakably strong.